This clear delineation is imperative because in its absence, ethnicity, racism may be strengthened and nationhood may be threatened or asphyxiated. I agree that rules and powers of office bearers should be clearly spelled out as we have heard over the last 2 days. Diversity. Diversity must not violate fundamental principles, values, and rights enshrined in the Constitution. Ethnic and racial roots are a fact of life. I repeat, ethnic and racial roots are a fact of life, but they must not be watered by assertions of superiority of one over another. Rather, where they exist in the post-tribal society, that variation must be honored. That variation in diversity must be honored in affirmation of the Bill of Rights. With modernization and globalization, customs and cultures will atrophy, and new codes of social conduct and relations will dominate, will sprout, gradually but irreversibly. I do not live the way my grandfather lived. We can't go back to the era of testing ethnic dominance by war and conquest. The world will not let us. Our children and grandchildren will not countenance such a prospect. And indeed, our children and our grandchildren are already saying, move aside or we will move over you. In explaining devolution, speakers who have traveled the breadth and length of this great land have recounted the universal refrain they heard, quote, "We want to see government come down to the people," unquote. I hear the same refrain in Tanzania, but it is an expression of the disenchantment of people with the performance of their MPs and disenchantment with the lordly demeanor of local government administrators who appear to be irretrievably self-serving and dictatorial. Devolution will multiply the contact points for these and new officials. Will they increase their presence? How can we ensure that increased participation will conduce and step up the pace of development? Because of the rich diversity of the people in our young nations, the place of special groups merits exceptional consideration. The rigor of their oppression and exclusion in decision-making and governance demands this. These are the women and the pastoralists. Described as affirmative action or positive action, such action is unavoidable. Special drives need to be started to assure women enjoy their fundamental rights of representation and governance on the one hand. On the other hand, pastoralists need to be educated and their awareness to be raised to the realities of climate change and the limits of pasture lands. These special recognitions need not be specifically entrenched in the Constitution, but again, they need to have the force of law. Ladies and gentlemen, when in my country we tell the youth that the future belongs to them, they quickly retort, and they say, they will not wait for tomorrow, they want to be today's leaders. As we have been told, they are the preponderant majority in both numbers and aspiration in our countries. I challenge them, the youth, to be more proactive in elective politics. It is not enough to be an activist or advocate. Enter the political arena and seek political office peacefully but determinedly. Ladies and gentlemen, the post-election violence revealed major weaknesses in the electoral process and institutions. In the journey now ahead to the next year's elections, those weaknesses must be addressed to lend credibility and transparency and to avoid disputes and conflicts. I would plead for consideration of these following factors. It should be insisted that the electoral process is a competition between political parties, not simply political personalities. Parties with policies, parties with programs, competing for the understanding and support of the electorate. Parties are about policies and strategies of implementation. Ad hominem attacks, personal vilifications, violence, and group hatred, these should not be part of the electoral campaign process. I suggest that participating political parties should subscribe to a binding code of electoral campaign conduct. Mr. Gaitho, if he is here, I listen to him very carefully because I am a kind of former journalist. But the process of announcing results of elections must be handled very carefully because it can spark a lot of violence. I believe that unilateral declarations of results should be proscribed. There should be a legally recognized, indisputable center which produces the official results. Otherwise, mischief makers can set populations on fire, and they must be promptly rebuked. Ladies and gentlemen, the media, as we have been told, have a powerful role to play in promoting an atmosphere of tranquility and friendliness on the campaign trail. I want to commend most earnestly the contribution of Mr. Kiprono Kitoni, chairman of the Media Owners Association, yesterday. I invite members of the so-called Fourth Estate to abide by time and profession-honored principles and standards. Reportage and comment should not be for sale to the highest candidate bidder. In conclusion, the challenge of the coming months leading up to the elections is that of consolidating the gains ushered in by the new constitution. It is the challenge of consolidating the culture of constitutionalism, of building bridges across ethnic cleavages, of entrenching the relative peace, stability, justice, and the rule of law. With the spirit of patriotism and the clarion call of one Kenya, one people, the hope for free and fair election and results will be realized and credible government emerge. Can this happen? Yes, it can. I asked my Kenyan brothers and sisters to resolve that it will happen. The Swahilis, as I said, have a saying, hayawi, hayawi, yamekuwa. Swali sasa ni hayawi, hayawi, yatakuwa. Asanteni sana.